everybody, it's your boy Gsluke here for our round 2 prize picks targets for this week's Wells Fargo Championship. Round 1 was a little bit of a success in terms of ROI, ended up winning about a quarter of a unit, so it wasn't anything crazy in terms of my ROI, and officially went 3 for 5 on our main card, but because the Terrell hand prop moved just about 2 minutes after my video went live, ended up being the over 68 that I gave for hand, which ended up coming through. So 3 for 5 unofficially, 4 for 5 unofficially. I know a lot of you out there hit for 2x. Of course, a lot of you took my advice, went in round robined a lot of those props and made a way to make a profit there. So not just the 2x from the 5 card. Of course, that's where I found a lot of my success, but because I did have that Terrell Hatton prop there at 4.5 birdies, I wasn't quite as lucky with getting my 2x return. I had to kind of scratch and claw my way back in terms of ROI with some of those 2 and 3 leg cards, but because we were right a little bit more than we were wrong today, you end up having a positive day. And that's the beauty with prize picks, particularly if you spread out your props, limit your exposure. You're not just all in on one card or something like that. As long as you're hitting it right around, I'd say right around a 75, maybe 70% hit rate, you're going to be in really good shape. So in this video, of course, we're going to be going over my props here for the second round, and my top 4 props this time to try and take advantage of the prize picks board. So with a lot to talk about, we're going to review round 1 as well. Let's go ahead and hop right on into it. We'll start off with a review of round 1 just to get an idea of what to expect here tomorrow, and you'll really see a difference of 2 halves. If we split this by wave over here, of course, this is Data Golf, which is one of the best resources out there for researching, so highly recommend you go ahead and check it out as well. But on here, if you split it by wave, you can see it was over a shot difference between the morning and the afternoon wave. Now, we expected that. I told you that was going to be the case there on Tuesday, and I would expect that to be the case tomorrow, except in reverse. Tomorrow, the wind is going to be higher in the afternoon than in the morning, which is what you would expect from day to day, pretty much anywhere in the world. But today was a different story. So just hopping into the weather, first off, let's take a look at Thursday, where most of the high wind gusts were here right around 8 to 10 a.m. A lot of guys that teed off even really early in the day, right, 7, even 7:30 a.m., dealt with a lot of the worst conditions. And that's why a lot of those +4, +5 scores came from. And throughout the day, it got more and more lenient, right? The wind gusts went down to the 16 to 13 mile an hour range, and all the way down to right around 6 or even 5 miles an hour for pretty much a remainder of the day. That was extremely favorable for these players. Of course, when there isn't any wind, even at a tough track like this, you're going to see some guys take it to 3, 4, even 5, 7 under par like a Jason Day was able to. Here on Friday, like I said, it's in reverse. In the morning, it's a little bit more penal than what they had this afternoon, right? 8 miles an hour of sustained winds in the teens in terms of wind gusts. But in the afternoon, it gets brutal. You're going to have 20 mile an hour wind gusts, 10 to 12 miles an hour of sustained winds. So a good, 4 to 5 miles an hour more in that department. And that's going to last the entire day. Whereas in the morning, they're going to have maybe an hour, 2 hours of pretty tough weather when the wind starts to really gust out there. But when it's in that 6 to 7 mile an hour range, it's going to be almost as gettable as this afternoon. So in terms of scoring average, the guys that are teeing off early, I'd expect to take it under par, close to half a stroke under. It's going to be slightly more difficult than what we had here on Thursday. And then in the afternoon, it's going to look a lot like this morning, if not actually worse, closer to half a stroke over par. Another factor to consider here, and we can't ignore it, is the weather forecast in terms of rain. You can see there's 2 raindrops here. One would be kind of like a sprinkle or a drizzle or something like that. 2 would be like a normal amount of rain. 3 is an absolute downpour. And you can see right around 4 or 5 p.m., it is going to downpour. That means that some of these guys that are teeing off later in the PM wave might not be able to finish their round. And you might have go over here to Saturday, where the wind becomes absolutely brutal. It's an absolute bloodbath on Saturday. So of course, the guys that make the cut are going to have to deal with that all day. But if there's any spillover from the round here on Friday, those guys are going to get absolutely butchered there on Saturday. So in terms of the modeling, what I'm looking at with my projections, the AM wave guys are certainly going to project higher than the PM wave guys. and I'm pretty much only fading the guys playing in the afternoon. So with all that being said, what props am I looking at here for this slate? So first and foremost, you see there's only 4 props for today. Normally there's 5. That's because of the taco they have out. Now, when you're watching this video, the taco is going to be gone, unfortunately. There's only 13 minutes left. This is a prop card that I went with here. It's a 10x play, just your normal 5-leg flex play. That's what I'm entering for tomorrow. Of course, the normal round robin with the rest of the props where I'm taking a 4-leg flex. I'm taking a bunch of 3-leg powers, a bunch of 2-leg powers with these cards to go ahead and wrap it up and make it a more diverse portfolio. So I'd recommend doing the same thing, right, with something like these 4 props. Maybe add in another prop that you really like if you want to take it up to a 5-leg flex. Also for adding some of those supplementary cards. But let's go ahead and talk about who I do like here on the slate. And you see they're all in the strokes category. And let's go ahead and start off with the fade, and then we'll hop into the guys that we like. So the fade is going to be Matthew Wolff down here at 69.5 strokes. Now, he in the morning wave was tied for first round leader, shot 5 under par. I have an outright bet on Matthew Wolff, but I did not play him in any type of fantasy format, and that's because of his inconsistency. Of late, it's just been a ton of missed cuts for Matthew Wolff, and because of his inaccuracy off the tee, he's gotten himself into a ton of trouble. So it's surprising he was able to go out there at a golf course that demands accuracy off the tee and find so much success. Now, the reason why I bet him outright is if he can figure out the driver for 4 rounds, he's unbelievably live to win this golf tournament. The unfortunate part is it's going to burn him a lot more than it doesn't at this venue, right? I'm expecting in at least 2, maybe even 3 of the rounds at this golf course for that to really cost him. And in terms of, a 50-50 type of prop where if he shoots even par or anything worse than that, we end up hitting, that is extremely attractive for a Matthew Wolff. So even though I do have investments into him this week, I do hope he goes out there and proves me wrong from a mathematical standpoint, from a logic standpoint, where we're just trying to generate the most ROI possible, is going to be one of my favorite plays on the slate. Realistically, I have him projected for well over 72 strokes. That's how bad he's been playing over the last 50 measured rounds, losing over a stroke and a half to the field with his shots gained metrics. He's playing in the afternoon wave. That's important. You can see a 105 tee time, which means he's playing in the wave where it's already going to average over par. And if he's losing a stroke and a half to the field, right, that puts his projection well over 72 strokes. So not somebody I have a whole lot of confidence in. Again, I hope he proves me wrong, but not a lot of things looking up here for Matthew Wolff. Next up, let's talk about the guys that I am supporting, right? So no doom and gloom anymore. Let's talk about the plays that I actually like here. First and foremost, we'll talk about Russell Henley, who's at 69 strokes. He's the most aggressive of the lines that I took here, the lowest. The rest of them are all at 69.5, of course. And he also played a phenomenal round today. Ended up shooting 2 under par. At one point was 3 under. Really kind of did it in a, I don't want to say nonchalant way. I don't want to say it was easy for somebody like Russell Henley, but given his play style, he makes courses like this look easy. He's so accurate off the tee, one of the top drivers in all of the PGA Tour when it comes to his driving accuracy. He's also one of the better iron players. Over his last 24 measured rounds, he's gaining close to 0.9 shots per round, which is among the guys like a Justin Thomas, Colin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, when they're playing their best golf, not how they're playing right now, he's blowing all of those players out of the water right now over their last 24 measured rounds. So that's how good he's been hitting the golf ball. He's, of course, makes sense from a course fit perspective. I talked about how accurate he is off the tee, and he played solid in the, I shouldn't say the harder conditions, in what should have been the harder conditions today, right? Usually the afternoon is harder. Tomorrow, he gets the advantageous conditions once again. So I could very well see him, reproducing that type of performance, if not improving on it. He made quite a few bogeys today. In fact, 3 bogeys on the day. If he cleans up the card a little bit, he could very easily take it to 4 or 5 under par. So as of right now, I have him projected for 68.7 strokes, which is under the 69 number right there. But keeping in mind the distribution, right, that's just the average score in terms of my projection. It's heavily, heavily skewed towards the under. Most of his, last time I looked at it, it was like a 65% hit rate, even though the projection was there at 68.7. So just take that with a grain of salt, right? It's all about the distribution. A lot of times, an average would be a little bit closer to, something that you'd want to take, like something like a, maybe it's an average of 67.8, but maybe it only hits like 56% of the time. Maybe it's a little bit skewed, to one way or the other. You guys, if you're into statistics, that kind of thing, you know what I'm talking about there. Just with the Russell Henley play, I have him projected hitting well over 60% of the time here. So certainly somebody that I'll be playing. Next up, we have these guys at 69.5. Now, it's much easier for these guys to hit, right? For them to hit, they just have to shoot 69 or better, which is 1 under par. Of course, 1 under is a push for Russell Henley, which I pretty much think he has in the bag. I do not see him shooting even par or worse. And Patrick Reed and Gary Woodland, my favorite plays on the slate. So in terms of my exposure, I have a ton of two-leg powers with one of Patrick Reed or Gary Woodland, of course, one power play with them together. But they're my highest dollar powers. They're just plays that I really expect to hit tomorrow. My quote-unquote locks, if that's your thing. That's not my thing. There's no such thing as a lock in sports. Anything can happen. I mean, hell, these guys could get injured out there, right? They could be hitting out of the marsh area, end up playing really bad after that. Maybe they don't withdraw, right? If they withdraw, that would actually be a solid thing for us. Things can happen, right? So there's no locks out there, but these are as close to it as it gets. So let's start with Patrick Reed, who shot 2 under par today, really looked in control of his game, and I had a weird feeling about him going into the week. I played him in DFS. I considered betting him outright. I didn't do that, thank God. I couldn't really live with myself if I bet Patrick Reed outright, but in either circumstance, this is a course that makes sense for him. It's relatively short off the tee. You don't have to be a bomber to have success here. It's a golf course where you're going to see a winning score probably close to, let's say, 12 to 13 under par. Those are the type of events that Patrick Reed wins, that he has a ton of success at, because he's skilled at getting up and down. He's a great putter. So when scoring really comes down to making those 20 to 25 footers, like you see this week, he's always going to be a play. And of course, he would have hit today if he took the under on this prop. Gets the advantageous conditions tomorrow morning, much like a Russell Henley. He's teeing off at 7:45 a.m. You can see Russell Henley teeing off at 8:18 a.m. So certainly somebody I expect to reproduce that, right? He's playing in the easy conditions, should have some relatively receptive greens. Just needs to hit enough fairways for us. And lastly, we have Gary Woodland at 69.5 as well. And he shot even today, so he wouldn't have a hit today, but that's why we're getting him at 69.5. Now, if he shot 2, even 3 under par today, he'd be at 68.5, maybe even 68 on the board. He'd be one of the favorites here. Of course, because he was slightly disappointing, Prize Picks gives us a little bit of a bone, right? They're kind of tempting us to go ahead and bet on him, and in reality, I love that pick, right? He's a great course fit here. A lot of people played him in DFS. A lot of people played him on Prize Picks today because of the course fit, and I'm expecting that to pay off at some point. He's been relatively accurate off the tee for the last month, even 2 months here on the PGA Tour. The approach play, he's gaining over 0.8 strokes per round, so not quite as good as a Russell Henley, but still absolutely firing it out there with the approach play. Gaining over half a stroke per round with the flat stick. So he's been playing among the best golf of anyone in the world. In fact, in terms of shots gained total, is a top 10 player over his last 24 measured rounds. I'm expecting it to turn around at some point. So in the wave, we're going to see a scoring average under par. Somebody who's a well above average player should shoot well lower than a lot of the other players in this field. I have him projected for closer to 68.4 strokes. So, of course, compared to Russell Henley, actually I have him projected for better. That's why he's my quote-unquote lock here on the slate. But still like Russell Henley as somebody to get some extra value, right? So a lot of my 3-leg cards don't have Russell Henley in it. It's a lot of cards with Reed, Woodland, and Matthew Wolff, mixing in from other sports, even with a few of them. Those, if I had to rank them, a lot of people always ask me to do this at some point here in the video. Number 1 would be Gary Woodland. Number 2 would be Patrick Reed. Number 3 would be Matthew Wolff. And number 4 would be Russell Henley. So have at it. Make all the prop cards that you want, guys. Hopefully it works out well for you. All right, guys, that is all I've got here for the Prize Picks preview. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead and let me know down in the comments what your favorite prop on the board is. As per usual, going to have you covered here for rounds 3 and 4. So make sure to stay tuned for that. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you haven't already as well, so you don't miss those videos when they drop. I really appreciate all of your support here, guys. Hopefully we can hit here for round 2. Would be pretty sweet. I didn't make a ton of money today. Like I said, just a slight profit, but I'm never going to complain about that, right? We're trend water, able to take a lot of those entry fees, just feed them into our player pool tomorrow, and I think the big one is coming soon. So best of luck to all of you guys out there, and I'll see you guys next time.